Hey guys, welcome to part 6 of the survival series in Unity 5, and this is going to be showing you how to take some food, water and health, maybe pickups, and use them as consumables. And we're going to have a simple raycast which will let us see the items in front of us, give us a little UI to show what we might do. We'll create a script which will allow us to change the different objects and give them different names and specify what the objects and what values or what health or thirst values if it will give us when we decide to pick it up. So I've got 3 boxes to start with, and I've just renamed them health, water and food, and the different colours, but I'll go through as we start along with this. So from here, these are going to be things that we're going to want to click on, and we're going to want to affect the bars that we created in our previous sort of tutorial. So what we can do straight away is right click in the project panel, go create, and we're going to choose C#, and then we're going to choose a new name, and we can call this Raycast Manager. Doesn't really matter, you can choose whatever you want, but I like to keep it like that so it's nice and organised. You can open that up, and once we're in this script we can get rid of the sort of starting methods that it gives us, and we'll just start afresh. So realistically, what we're going to need to do, so when we do our raycast, we want to be able to specify an object that we're looking at, but we don't want to hard code in what the object is. We want to just find it with whatever's in front of us at the time. So what we can do is we can create a new private variable and have this as a private game object and have this as raycasted obj with a semicolon, and that's going to be the object that we're going to find in front of the camera. Then what I like to do is create some headers just to make this nice and organised so we can see it in the inspector. So if we write in square brackets header, then add 2 brackets and 2 quotes, and in there we can just call this raycast settings. So then in the inspector we can see everything that's going on. Then under there, what I'm going to do is add 2 more square brackets and write serialized field, and this just helps us to show private variables in the inspector. So I'm going to write private float ray length and set that equal to 10 for now. And what I like to do is I just like to keep my serialized fields on the same line, and serialized field just means that, like I said, that you can see a private variable in the inspector because we don't need things to be public if we don't need to access them from elsewhere. Now we're going to do the same thing on another line, so we need 2 more square brackets and we can write serialized field in it again. Then we can have another private variable and have this set to layer mask, and we can create a new layer mask and we can call this new layer mask. You could name that whatever you want, but this is just what we're going to allow the raycast to find. We only want it to find items on a specific layer, so it helps us not have any problems with other sort of objects that might exist in the scene. Then under here, I'm going to add a new header in square brackets, so header brackets, then in here some quotes, and we'll just call this references. And then from there, we're going to do 2 square brackets, do the serialized field again, and have private. We'll have player vitals, which is a capital. I went back into Unity so you can see that this is the player vital script that we created before. So in this variable that we're creating, we're referencing the the script that we've got, and we're just going to name this player vitals with a lowercase p this time. And now what we're going to do is we're going to want to create a crosshair to go along with this. So what we can do is we can at the top say using Unity engine.ui, so we can get all the things related to the UIs. So then we can have another serialized field and have that as private image with a capital, and have this named as Crosshair. And then similarly with here, we're going to have another serialized field and have this as private, and this time we're going to have a text element, and we're going to name this item name text, and this is going to be the actual text name for the items that we're going to have and make them appear on the UI. So once we've got the basics of the things that we're looking at, we're going to go back into Unity again, and then we're going to create the things that we're looking for. So on the canvas that we previously had, we had a panel. So on this canvas, we can right click the canvas in the hierarchy and go UI and choose text, and we're going to go canvas, again right click it, UI and image. And from here we'll go in the top corner, top left to the 2D view, and we'll select one of these objects, just press F to sort of zoom all the way out, and we can see the canvas here. Now on our image, this is going to be classed as our crosshair. And now we can actually change the image that we want on the crosshair. So over here on this side, on the source image, click on that and you can select one of the default icons, which is a knob, and you can set the width and the height maybe to 20 and 20. And then we'll make sure that the anchor is just in the middle. And then we can click on our text element and you can see that we can drag this around. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort of put this over maybe where our panel is, over here, and maybe scale it out a little bit so it fits nicely on the page. I will change the font color to white so we can see it a little bit better, and maybe scale the text up so it's that big, let's say. And then in the game view you can see it there, and you can see our crosshair here. This is, you can adjust these accordingly, but I've just kept them nice and big so you can see them visually. What we can do is we can go back into editing our code, and we can start by writing our Raycast now. So we can use void update, 2 brackets, 2 curly brackets below there. I'm going to start by saying Raycast hit, and then hit with a lowercase with a semicolon on the end, and then we're going to say vector 3, and then FWD to class as forward, and we're going to say equals transform with a lowercase dot transform direction, both uppercase, then in brackets vector 3 dot forward, and then on the end of there we want a semicolon. Then below here we want an if statement, which is going to say the if physics with the capital dot Raycast, and then open brackets transform with a lowercase dot position, comma FWD, comma out hit, comma ray length, comma layer, or a new layer mask dot value. And then below here we want another 2 curly brackets. So here we're just doing a simple raycast, a forward raycast, and then we're looking to see if the raycast is from our position forward from what we'd set from the camera. We're looking for the hit, we're checking the length at which we're firing out, so you can adjust this to make the ray shorter, and then we're just specifying what layer we only want to look at. So from here in our if statement we want to now say that, what we're going to look for, we're going to look for a specific tag. So we'll say that if hit.collider dot compare tag, open brackets in quotes, we'll write consumable. And this can just be a general name for all our items that we're going to consume. Then we can create 2 brackets below there, and now we want to actually be able to do something specific. So first of all, when we look at a consumable, we might want to change the crosshair. So we can say, we can create a new method called crosshair active, and have 2 brackets and a semicolon. What we can do on our very last semicolon, we can go down here and create a new void and call this crosshair active, just like we did at the top. Add 2 brackets, then 2 curly brackets below. Then we can say that our crosshair that we referenced up here, crosshair dot color equals color with a capital dot, let's say, red. So that's all well and good. Then what we can do is we can create another method, which can be another one that we're going to use later, is crosshair normal, let's say, add 2 brackets, then 2 curly brackets below there, and do the same again. We'll say that crosshair dot color equals color with a capital dot white with a semicolon. So that's going to be our highlighted cursor, which is red, and then our normal cursor or crosshair, which will be white. So that will be perfect. So when we see consumable, we're going to say, well, we're going to change the crosshair to red, because that's what we want to do. Now, we want to actually find the object that we're looking for. So you remember up at the top, we looked for the raycasted object. That's what we're going to look for. So now we're going to say that raycasted object equals hit dot collider dot game object, and the G is a lowercase. So what we're saying is the game object that we want to look for is whatever we've hit in the Raycast. So we're looking for the collider, and then we get the game object, and it'll just fill this variable in for us, depending on what we find. In another bit, we'll need another script to control all the things that the object kind of does. We're going to want to, update the UI that we made, which was for the update the UI name that we wanted to appear on our canvas. Then what we can do just below these two, we can create another if statement. We can say that input.get mouse button down, and then we can say in brackets 0, which is left click, and then we make sure that there's another bracket on the end of there, add 2 curly brackets below. Then again we can choose to select the object properties script that we're going to create, and we're going to do something in there. So realistically, we've done the basis to our Raycast so far, and it's going to look for the consumable, update the crosshair, it's going to find the object that we're looking for, and it's going to fill in our variable for us. And then if we left click, it's going to do something, but we need to make sure that the crosshair goes back to normal when we're not looking at a consumable. So what we can do from there is we can select on our if statement that's related to the this one here, which is related to the top one up here. We want to create a space in between here by dropping down, and we want to say else, and then below there we'll have 2 curly brackets, and we can say that crosshair normal. We can call that method, and then here we want to set the item name back to normal, and this is for later on. So I'll show you this as an example. We'll go back into our scene, we'll go onto our FPS controller, select your main camera, and just drag the Raycast Manager on here. From there you will see that our Raycast settings is set to 10, and then we've got our references that we need to fill in. So from here we can go to our layers, and you want to click add layer. From there you want to go to the user layer, and you could type something like interact, interaction, whatever you might want. So we can go back onto the main camera, and we can go on a tag and add a new tag, and we can click the little add box and call this consumable, like so. Then what we can do in our scene view, we can go back to all our cubes that we created. Make sure you're out of 2D view and you press F to zoom in. You can see that we've got a food, water and a health cube. We can set their layer to interact on each, and set each of them, if you select all 3, and select the tag as consumable, and then you can cycle through them and see that they've all got the same tag. So they've all got tag and they've all got interact now. So now back on our main camera, you can see that in our Raycast settings we need to specify the actual new layer that we're looking for. So you can click the drop down which currently says nothing, and we can set that to interact. Now there's 3 references that we need to fill in, which is the player vitals, the crosshair, and the item name object. So what we can do is we can add the FPS controller to the player vitals, because that's where that script lives. We can add the crosshair to the crosshair box, and then the text, which was going to be item name, which I will rename just to make things more coherent, and drag it in over there, and it will recognize it all accordingly. So we can hit save, and we can now press play. And you can see when I'm in the scene, you can see that when I look over an object, it will change colour accordingly to what I'm looking at. As long as we're looking at a consumable, no matter where else I look, we don't get any of the interaction. So what we can do now is we can create a script which will control what each of our objects is going to do. So it's good to sort of break up your scripts into different managers or different items so you can keep it all consistent and not get too confusing. So we can right click in the project and create another C# script and we can call this item properties if you so wish. And then we can open that up. What we can do is we can knock this curly bracket down, get rid of the first 2 starting methods. What I'm going to do is create a square bracket and then I'm going to add a new header like we've done before, then 2 brackets, then in the quotes we're going to call this your consumables, and then from there what we'll do is we'll make a public string, and I have this as item name, and now we're going to have a selection of variables which I'm just going to have as serialized field again, and I'm just going to have 4 different ones of these. I'll skip on just to make this quicker, and what we're going to have is a private bool as food with a semicolon, a private bool water, and a private bool as health. And then we're going to have one last one which is going to be a private float, and we're going to call this value. What that public one meant is we want to access this public name that we're going to set in this script, which is going to be added to each of the items that we've got in the other script, so we need to make sure it's public, whereas these private ones, they don't need to be. And then we need another reference, so we can have a serialized field and call this a private. Now I want to create the player vitals, which is we want to access the player vitals script again and have this as player vitals. We did actually create a variable in the Raycast Manager for player vitals, but we don't actually need that, so you can just get rid of that and save it back out because we're going to use it in this script. So from here, underneath the player vitals that we just created, we can create a public void and call this interaction with 2 brackets and 2 curly brackets below. And then we're going to sort of say that depending on what the food is, or I mean what the consumable that we're going to use is, that we're going to add the value to one of the sliders in the player vitals. So we're going to add some to health, food, or water. So we're going to say that if food, so if the food equals true, so if we tick the box that now that item is going to be a food type, we're going to say that player vitals with a lowercase p dot hunger slider dot value plus equals the value that we can state up here. Then underneath these 2 brackets we can say else if, and we can put in this brackets water, so if we tick that it's a water consumable, we'll do something similar. So we'll say player vitals dot thirst slider dot value plus equals again value, and once again you might have guessed else if, and we can say health in that brackets, and you can add 2 curly brackets below and say that player vitals with a lowercase dot health slider dot value plus equals the value that we're going to set. You can check all the different sliders in your script or on the actual object itself, but you can see that we're accessing the value of the slider each time. And then in here, all we're doing is literally going to be adding the value that we're going to set, and it's different for each object, so I've made it in a different script so you can make it for as many different objects as you like really easily. Then in the Raycast Manager, like I'd said before, we need to make it so that we could access these things elsewhere. So from here, we said wanted to update the UI name based on what we had in the item properties. So what we can say is the item name text, which we added up here. We can say .text because you have to give the name of the UI element .text because we're going to write text into the box. Then we're going to say that it will equal the raycasted object .getComponent, and then we want angle brackets, and then we're going to say that we're going to put in there item properties. Then we're going to have 2 brackets, then put a full stop, and write item name with a semicolon. So what this means is the item name.text, so this is the UI element that we've got. We're going to say that it's going to equal the raycasted object that we found, which would be anything that we might have set. It's going to find the script on it, which is item properties, and we're going to set the item name to the UI element. So it can change according to whatever item. We could have 200 items in the scene, and each time when you look at them, it'll change it on the UI according to whatever we've written in that script. And we need to access the script to get that item name from it. And the item name is a string, and so is the actual text box, because text is a string. And then in our left click, we need to be able to say that we want to run this public method here, which is going to do something depending on what type of item we've got. So we can get rid of the comment that I put in, and we can say that raycasted object dot get component angle brackets, and in those angle brackets you might guess we're gonna use item properties, and then we can use 2 brackets and then call the function interaction and then add 2 brackets and a semicolon, which is just going to call this public function, and dependent on the thing that we clicked in the specific script, so whether it's food, water or health, it will run one of these each time we click on it. So now what we can do is we can close up Visual Studio. You can add item properties to each of these different cubes that you've got, or items that you might have. So you can see that on our food item that we've got here, we might want to say that this item here is, we can write that I am food with an exclamation mark, and we can tick the box to say yeah, or where food, and then we might want to say that it gives back a value of 10 when we click on it. We can do it similar with water. We can say that this is bottled water. We can then say that tick the box of water, and then maybe that will give us back, I don't know, 2 each time we take. You can check how much everything's worth by, if you go onto your FPS controller or wherever you have your player vitals, we set the maximum thirst to 100, so it will start at 100, so you can have anything going up to 100 to give back to the player in terms of things like that. We can do the similar thing for health, but it would go down because we don't have any way to take the health down unless I manually did it, but we can tick those if we want to. So I will save this out, and you need to make sure that you've added the reference to the player vitals, so you can just add your controller and do the similar thing for the water. And then from there what we can do is we can press play. You will notice that the bars will go down as normally, thirst, hunger will move down, and we've got the new text element, and you can see that I am food is there. We can see that the UI text box wasn't big enough, but that says bottled, it should say bottled water, and we haven't got anything for the third. And you can see that when I went away it didn't move anything. So what we can do is we can go back into our script, and you can see at the bottom, when in our else statement, we didn't say what we wanted to do when, we weren't actually looking at anything. So you can see that the crosshair went back to normal. We can then say that item name text dot text is equal to null. So it means that it's equal to nothing when we're not looking at anything. So we can go back on the canvas. We can close the panel back up. We can go to the item name, go back into 2D view and scale out. And what I'll do is I'll just make this text box a lot bigger. And then when we press play this time, you would expect that now that to be bottled water and it fits on. If I look away, it updates it so it's not showing anything. Then I am food, bottled water, and if we had something filled in for this side, that's what it would do. You can see that the hunger and thirst are decreasing. If I select, you can't actually see the colours of this box, but you can tell because this is bottled water. If I left click, you can watch the blue thirst bar, and that will increase by 2 each time, and you can click that forever and ever until you need to do something. I am food, you could do a similar thing, that will give you 20 food back, and then the bars will continue to decrease over time. What you can do is, say in our object, we wanted to get rid of it once we'd clicked on it once. You can say here in our raycast script, you can say that raycasted object dot set active, and then you can say in brackets false with a semicolon, and that'll just mean it'll set it to false and make it go away and turn it off. So let's give you an example. Is that, say I'm looking at the food and then I eat the food, now that's gone. I have a look at the water, take the water, that's gone as well. so we can instantly sort of use an item as we go. So all it required was really a few simple things. It required a basic raycast, which just took an object which used a consumable. So we had a tag of consumable and we gave it a layer so it wouldn't get in the way of anything else. We set a crosshair to active. We looked for that raycast object and we found it based on the collider that we hit, and it fills that into the inspector for us, or sort of behind the scenes. We're filling the item name text, so that UI text box, with the name of the item that we set from in this script when we add it to our object. Then when we left click, we're going to add the raycasted object, so we're going to find the component, item properties again, and we're going to say to it, run the interaction function. So based on that, it'll say whatever you've set. If it's water, health or food, it will add a value of whatever you've set for per object on a per object basis. You can choose to get rid of the object if you so wish. Say it's a large body of water and you can just left click it infinitely. You don't want to destroy it. We've got an else statement which turns our crosshair back to normal, and it just turns the item name text to null when we're not looking at anything, and we just change the crosshair using a basic colour change. So that's pretty much it for just creating yourself a very basic sort of look at consuming some basic items, changing a crosshair, and creating some things that pop up within your sort of UI. So thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Cheers.